I'm Yotam Marom from New York. I'm a member of the Organization for a Free Society. I'm speaking now from the United States Social Forum in Detroit. OFS, the Organization for a Free Society, is a collective of organizers from a bunch of different backgrounds who are at the same time inserted in a bunch of different social movements like the labor movement, student movement, youth movements, all sorts of things like that. And at the same time as that, part of an organization trying to create a holistic vision and strategy for an actual social transformation, to really build a movement. And the idea is that we have to be doing a bunch of things at the same time, and one is participating in grassroots struggles, like I was just describing, on all fronts, including the anti-war movement and, as I said, labor and student and all sorts of things like that. And at the same time, popularizing a vision for an alternative society. And the idea is that we can't have meaningful social transformation without movements, because only movements are capable of taking a bunch of different struggles and combining them into something coherent and long-term that can outlast individuals. And at the same time, you can't have movements without a vision. And the idea is that we can't actually expect people to put a lot out on the line and really struggle and fight, like take risks, really, without an idea of what we would have instead. And actually that we come out of a tradition of people who are trying to envision something else, as opposed to only critique the things that do exist. So our analysis is a holistic one. We don't think that any particular social sphere is more important than the others. So we think that actually the way the world is right now is an interaction of a bunch of different social spheres, like class and the economy and race and community and ethnicity and nation and religion and kinship, so gender and sexuality and things like that, as well as power and politics, all in the context of the environment and ecology with an international dimension too. So the idea is basically that you can't really understand the world if you only look at one of those areas of social life, and we can't only struggle in one area assuming that the others will fix themselves. And coming out of that perspective, we have the understanding that we've got to then struggle on all those different fronts at the same time. And so it's not enough also to critique. So we know that capitalism is bad, and we know that racism is bad, and we know that patriarchy is bad, and authoritarianism is bad, and so on. But that's not enough. That's not enough to really create a movement. And so we have an actual vision for how the world ought to be instead, and not how the world shouldn't be on its own. So we envision a participatory economy based in councils where people interact with each other democratically to plan an economy, but it's decentralized and it's not a central planning sort of thing, and it's at the same time it's not markets, so it's something else. And we imagine like a liberated kinship sphere where there's choice basically in how you want to identify and how you want to practice your sexuality and partner and so on. And we imagine a truly democratic council system for the political sphere, and we imagine, and for the community sphere, we use a term called intercommunalism, which is basically the idea that all peoples deserve a right to self-determination, but that's not mutually exclusive with being in solidarity with everyone else. We envision autonomy within solidarity. And so basically we have an analysis of the world as it is right now, which is that the way the world is right now is a combination of a bunch of different forces that are at work at the same time, and they reproduce each other and they support each other, and you can't fight only one without the other. And then coming out of that, we have an understanding that we need a vision if we want to change the world. We can't only say that we don't want something, we have to say that we do want something else, and so we assert that vision and we put that at the forefront of our struggle. And only with a comprehensive analysis and vision can we really come up with a strategy. You can't know where you're going if you don't know. You can't know how you want to get to where you're going if you don't know where you want to end up. And the idea of ending up somewhere is also, it's complex, and we don't mean that we have a perfect idea of where we're going to end up, but we do need to have we do need to know what we want, or else there really isn't any reason to fight. Also, without having an idea of where we want to end up, we can't possibly understand what kind of institutions we want to build along the way. And that's like a good lead-in into our strategy. The idea of our strategy, maybe at the center of our strategy, is the idea of dual power, which is that we want to create. On the one hand, we want to create the institutions that will replace the ones that exist now. We want to create alternative institutions, so we want to create those councils, and we want to live communally, and we want to have, you know, alternative institutions are all sorts of things that people are already building, like eco-villages and food co-ops and all sorts of things that actually people have throughout all of history have built these things in order to survive under capitalism and racism and all these other brutal systems that make it impossible for us to live without creating these alternative systems. And so at the same time, so we've got to be creating these alternative structures. Without knowing how we want the world to be, we wouldn't know what kind of structures we want to create in the meantime. But the structures on their own, the idea of dual power really is that the structures on their own are not enough, that power doesn't just back down on its own, that there needs to actually be a struggle and a confrontation. So at the same time as building alternative institutions, we also need to build counter institutions, which are the forces that actually fight on the ground, like anything from a union to like an anti-war group to a student group to all these actual social movements that are fighting, that many of which are here at the U.S. Social Forum. And a combination of those things is what is going to build a movement. So like a movement should be like a collection of a bunch of different groups who are creating the alternatives in themselves and living them out, and at the same time like struggling to create space for them to grow. And only when we have both of those things, and on a wide array of different like issues through all of the different areas of social life, all put together in a movement that gives each of those movements the autonomy they need to carry out their struggles, but also sees them all in solidarity for a greater goal of a holistic vision of how a new society, a free society, should be. And that's how we'll have a revolution. So again, the group is called the Organization for a Free Society. We have a website. You can check us out, afreesociety.org. Right now we're based mainly in New York and Detroit, but we've got people all over, and branches that are starting to form, and individuals that are creating branches, and other groups that are with whom we're in touch and trying to form something larger. And you can find out more about us at our website, which is afreesociety.org. And again, my name is Yotam Aron, and thank you for having me.